Well, hello everyone. Welcome to the ADVMoto Pod number 10. I'm your host, Carl Parker, and boy, do we have another great show for you today. You know, it's not often that we meet members of the motorcycle community who are not only passionate about bikes, but also about educating today's youth. ADVMoto recently met up with two amazing riders on a mission to hashtag bring back shop class. Having run almost 1,500 students through their program in Cleveland, Ohio, everyone, please welcome Brian Shaffron and Molly Vaughn. Woo!
What up?
Hi, everyone.
What up? Everyone gets the applaud track. So, guys, thanks for taking the time to come on the show today. I think I've heard about you guys just through the ethernets, and I was instantly captivated by it. So, real fast, and then we'll get to your personal introductions in a second. But could you guys give us all kind of like what is Motogo and what is the mission there?
Sure. So Motogo is a nonprofit, and we are teaching students confidence through building motorcycles. So specifically, we are building Honda CB350 motorcycles and having a lot of fun showing kids that they can learn through failure. And essentially, we're bringing back shop class.
Awesome. Brian, anything to add?
It is really is a way for kids to experience tools, and lots of kids today don't have access to tools, and so they are learning by using their hands. They're failing nonstop at using these tools and trying to put the motorcycle together, and in the end, they have accomplished something gigantic, and that level of confidence inspires them to then go out and be better humans, be more well-rounded, feel like they can have some control over their lives and around their surroundings. And so it kind of touches all the bases. And even though the mission can't say all that, that's really what's happening, is we're just making better humans.
Right on. And we are 100% behind that. So can you guys give personal introductions and, what were your backgrounds before starting Motogo?
Start?
Sure.
So I was a high school history teacher, and within that experience, I started bringing some hands-on lessons to the classroom. We were building catapults as we were learning about the Crusades. And that was my first experience with kids not really understanding how to use tools. And I was flabbergasted. Couldn't use a tape measure, didn't know how to use a hammer, drill, couldn't do anything.
Tape measure, huh?
Yeah, and that's still a problem. And then a couple of years later, we did a thing at the school called Wonder Week, where every adult in the building got to teach their passion rather than teach the subject they were being paid to teach. And I brought in 3 CB750s, and I had 12 kids, and I thought in 1 week we could take them all apart, the kids would see how engines work, and we'd put them all back together. It was at the time, I thought it was a total failure. At the end of that week, there was a couple thousand parts on the floor, and the bikes were not together, and parts were ruined, and I felt like it was a total disaster. But throughout the coming year, I realized that those kids, those 12 kids, and actually a lot of the kids that were really involved with whatever program they chose for Wonder Week, they all felt more of an investment in their education, and their attendance rates rose, and the amount of respect they showed for teachers was different. And they started participating in after-school activities, and they just invested more of themselves into the education rather than just seeing it as a, ho-hum, go to school, sit in front of a chalkboard, and then go home type of thing. So after I left teaching, I opened Skidmark Garage, which is a DIY motorcycle garage. And after doing that for a couple of years, I kind of went back to the problem I saw when I was teaching with the ability of kids to use their hands and make and fix. And so we kind of dreamed up the idea of starting a nonprofit that would bring motorcycles into the classroom and let each kid have their own engine or their own bike and take the whole thing apart and put it back together and learn by failing. And that's the short of how I got here.
And I kind of got here sort of along the same path. I would say the bit that I bring to the business is a chip on my shoulder, maybe about being a woman. And so I grew up in a family with 2 older brothers and was an athlete. And I think I was an athlete on purpose to fit in with my dad. So it was like the thing the 2 of us had while my brothers weren't particularly athletes. So I sort of saw the world from the kid sister seat of feeling left out and wanting everyone in this world to have a place where they felt like they could belong. So, you know, life goes on. I graduate with a phys ed major thinking I'll be a gym teacher because that's the only thing I know for women that's a career where I can use my hands. I had no interest in being a gym teacher. So long story short, I end up at this high school that Brian was at, and we kind of merged our worlds there. But from the moment that we started Motogo, I think that a piece of this that was important for me was equitable education and a place where all students could see themselves in a position. So when we began Motogo, equity was one of our core values. And we made the decision together to be a female-run business with a female-led board that represents communities all over this country. And so I think as we speak to you and we think about the motorcycle riding community, it's important to us that any kid in this country can find themselves a place where they belong through what for us is motorcycle shop class.
Right on, right on. And that is probably one of the most noble missions I've heard come through here in a very long time. Brian and Molly came down to the Virginia area. They drove all the way down to grab a bike, which is that in the background?
Hey!
Oh, you guys did a great job on that. So we have met in person, and it was such a lovely time. I wish we could have spent more time together. But I really got a sense of their passion for the program, and got to ask a lot of questions. And one of the things that we talked about is how do you guys feel that bringing back shop class is ultimately beneficial for the kids? I know you've kind of touched on that, but if you could give a couple of examples, based on some of the kids that you've already had through your program, that would be really cool.
So one of the things, I really focus on the whole idea of problem solving. And so we don't really walk the kids, we don't hold their hands as they take the bike apart and put it back together. I kind of throw them at it and make sure they're using the tools safely, and then I let them figure it out. When I tell them to take the tank and the seat off as the first 2 steps, most of them don't know what the tank is. So it's a huge figuring out thing, and they have to use the climber manual. And there was, it's crazy, but there was one kid, it was a high school kid, that he and his team, I think he was on a team with 2 other kids, and they were working on taking something apart. And he comes up to me and he said, "What do I do next?" And I said, "Well, it looks like you're on step 8. Grab the book." So he grabs the book and he comes over to me, and I said, "Yeah, step 8 right there." And he goes, "I'm sorry, but I can't read." And
wow.
And I had experienced kids when I was teaching history that had trouble reading, but none of them ever freely admitted it like that. So it kind of took me aback a little bit, but I rolled with it and I said, "All right." And so I read him step 8, and then he went right to it, told the rest of the team what they had to do, and they accomplished the next step. And I came back to the school. We were at that school once a week. So I came back to that school the next week, and I walk into the classroom to get ready, and in the classroom already is this woman, and as soon as I open the door, she runs at me and gives me a hug, and I have no idea who this woman is, and she's already crying, and I was kind of like, "Hey, who are you? What's going on?" And she said, "Last week, Robert chased me down to learn how to read." And I was like, what are you talking about? She goes, "I've been chasing Robert for 2 years in this school to get him to come to my remedial reading workshops and classes and tutoring so that he could learn how to read. And he's always avoided me. He never thought he needed it. And then he came and sought me out and said, Miss, I need to learn how to read because I need to take apart a motorcycle. And she was like weeping because working on a motorcycle made a kid want to read. And then I bump into the kid as he's a senior and he pulls me aside. I was over there picking up a motorcycle, cleaning up the room. And he's like, do you remember me? And I said, yeah. And he goes, well, I want you to know that I learned how to read and I'm graduating. I was like, holy smokes. And then I bump into him again a couple of years later and he's got a job and he's working. He's, a productive member of society. And he saw me and pulled me aside. He's like, do you remember me? And he's like, yeah, I do. And turns out he graduated in like the top 20% of his class and had a job, and he was hoping to go to school to be a mechanic. And like that, bringing motorcycles into a classroom inspired a kid to learn how to read. And then we had another girl at our first school that we were working at. She came into the class and wasn't sure what she wanted to. She was a senior and she wasn't sure what she wanted to do after graduation. And after going through Motogo, she decided she wanted to be an engineer. And so she got into an engineering college down at Ohio University. And she was the only female in the whole program. And not only that, but she was the only one that had ever done anything with her hands. So she was like 8 steps in front of all the other students that were taking these classes because she knew what worked and what didn't. Not just how to do a CAD program and how to make things look like they were going to work, but she built the lift that her motorcycle was on. So she got experience using 2x4s and fasteners. And when it came time to design something on the CAD program, all the students were using 2" by 4" pieces of lumber to design this. And she was the only one that knew that it was 1.5 by 3.5. So hers was the only one that worked. And nobody knew why she knew this. And it was because she worked with her hands and she built the lift and then took the motorcycle apart and just she had a better grasp of what the real world was, and she knew how to solve problems by using her hands and her brain.
Well,
if we bring that kind of experience to 1,500 students, if we bring that kind of experience to every student, it changes the trajectory of all of our futures, not just theirs.
Yeah, 100%. To go back to the first story about the kid who, couldn't read. First off, I'd like to say it took a lot of courage for him to tell you that. That's not easy for anyone of any age to actually admit to somebody. So to me, what that says is you created an environment where they felt like they could communicate this with you, and that is really important, right? And the other thing, it goes to, like a lot of education, regardless of where you are, is heavily institutionalized, and not everybody is meant to excel in academic, structures and environments. Some of us thrive by working on our hands. We get the reward from seeing the physical transformation, right, in front of us from something that is, it's like in your case, right, like it's non-functional and needs cleanup, and then they take it down to the bones and they bring it back up again, and then it works, and it's a living, breathing machine, right, in a sense. And some kids might not be that interested in it, but for other kids, that's the world, right? And so I felt like, and this is what turned me on about you guys' program, is that I felt like there's a lot of kids out there who are like that. I mean, a lot. It's more than a couple percent, right? And where is this opportunity for them, right? Bring back shop class. We see budgets on those things getting cut all the time, even art. And you guys know that we're involved in also art education, right? Even art, where is the educational opportunity that's career oriented, that's confidence oriented for the kids that are not really cut from, strictly academic.
Yeah, I think what Brian and I have in common is we were those kids. So we often talk about, here we are now, we're business owners with a thriving business and a growing staff. But I didn't learn that I was smart until I was in my 30s. I spent my whole career thinking I wasn't worthy or that I didn't belong in spaces or deserve a seat at the table where decisions are being made. And then through this, like, I had to teach these classes with Brian. I don't have a background in building motorcycles, but learning to tear down an engine and failing through that and being frustrated with my business partner / husband when he wouldn't help me. Learning to fail, like, created that muscle memory and the importance of knowing that failure is problem solving. And now from that, I learned to use QuickBooks. I learned to balance budgets. I've been able to take this company to a new position with more students being able to be served and thrive because I was brave and tried failing. And learning to fail made me realize I'm smart.
Right on, right on. And that's such an awesome lesson for anyone to learn, to be honest, at any stage of your life. Right? I mean, knowing when to ask for help is hard. Actually asking for help, just like that kid had to come out and say, I'm sorry, but I can't read. Basically he's saying, I need your help with this, but I want to do this, right? So, I mean, just the courage, right, that this can develop the personal confidence. It's fantastic. And I think you guys are actually like an embodiment of that point. And I'm really happy that it's been well, received so far. So going forward, I mean, what are the long-term goals, but also challenges for Motogo?
I think our biggest challenge has been the wait list of people who want this program and matching the materials, the people, and the support it takes to continue growing it. So unfortunately, we could sit here and be happy and content with where we're at. We're serving 500 kids a year. That's pretty good. But like we said earlier, we were those kids that needed this. And now, unfortunately, we've seen how well it works, and we can't stop. We're doing this country a disservice if we don't give other cities the opportunity for Motogo. So I think as we grow our staff and support in what, this is a nonprofit, so we're a 501c3. We're now looking at replicating this model in other cities and taking on feasibility studies in other areas of the country because it's too important for students across this country not to have, and it's really not a mind-blowing concept. It's shop class. We're bringing back something that existed and was important, and I think it's our duty to keep spreading it. So, obviously financial support is always a challenge, but once people learn what we're doing and they see the students and the spark in their eyes, the support is coming. But I think in addition to the support, just spreading the message about what we're doing and finding folks like you, Carl, like someone who said, hey, this is cool. I want to be able to show this to the rest of the country and in podcast form. But yeah, just spreading the message. And our plan really is like 10 cities, 10 years. So it will no longer be Motogo Cleveland. It will be, Motogo Richmond, Motogo Detroit, Motogo Los Angeles. I don't know. I guess we'll see who's most interested.
Well, that's cool. So even though I know you guys, maybe it's a work in progress, because it basically is kind of like franchising, but it's not, not on a commercial scale, but on a programmatic scale, right? So, what would someone need if they wanted to start a similar program? Like what kind of access to resources, but not just, physical resources like buildings or equipment, but also just in terms of personal resources, how much time, what's the right attitude for this kind of thing?
I think as we look towards pitching these feasibility studies, we're really looking for a city to come forward with 3 people who fit sort of 3 categories that you need. So you need someone passionate, potentially a passionate teacher who's interested. We need someone that has a love of motorcycles. And we need like a business backer who's interested in saying, I'm willing to put the financial support behind this. So really like a teacher, a lover of motorcycles, and a rich person. get together and say, we want to do this. We want to bring schools in. We want to tie the motorcycle community in, and we want to financially support it. So when someone comes to us with those 3 people on a piece of paper, I think the next step is that our Motogo team comes to your city and we can kind of sit down and talk about next steps from there.
Wow. Okay. So in terms of like facilities, what's involved?
Well, Motogo probably owns, I'm going to say 60 CB350s.
And it took 6 years to get there. So remember, we didn't own those all on day one.
Yeah, like when we first started, it was 2 work areas that existed inside of Skidmark Garage that the adults weren't allowed to go touch, and the kids would come in and work on those motorcycles, surrounded by another 140 motorcycles and a bunch of adults. So we started off pretty meagerly, but we knew we were going to have to grow. And once we moved into this current location, Motogo got its own floor, 10,000 square feet. And we've got a ton of motorcycles, and you need to be able to house them, have the tools to rebuild them, have the people to help deliver them. And so we had to get a truck. Luckily, a guy donated a pickup truck and someone else donated a trailer, and we can bring those motorcycles to the schools and drop them off and set them up, and then come back here and grab another bunch of motorcycles and bring them to another school. Originally, we thought it was going to all probably happen in our location, but as it turns out, I would say it's only 1 out of 10 schools that actually bring their kids to us. We bring all the stuff to them. But yeah, there definitely has to be a physical location that exists to have all of our meetings and our discussions and workshops and just the physical rebuilding and prepping of all the stuff.
I think what'll be nice though, as people replicate, knowing that we can be a support system to you. It's easy for us to think about where we are now and what it takes to support our staff of 12 and our 500 students. But I think the idea is that a new city might be interested, and we have this plan for what a 3-year growth model looks like. So in that first year, you might only serve 6 students, and that's okay, because that slow growth model is so important for the sustainability of the long term. And really, our number one asset is the community, which is why we think you need to come forward with those people first before we even think about space. At the end of the day, Brian and I are educators, and I think being passionate folks who care about kids, everything else will come easily. You will find the motorcycle people. They will find you. When they see that garage door roll open and it's full of Honda CB350s and kids are wrenching, their eyes are going to be like, what is going on in there? So really bringing the right people to the table first is the simple first step. And like the rest will come, if you build it, they will come.
The motorcycle people are out there. That's awesome, guys. That's awesome. Okay. Well, so as far as, like we talked about, like the personnel assets and those kinds of resources, and just real quick, how much space are we talking about? You need 1,000 square feet, 1,600 square feet minimum
to start, and you're only going to have 1 or 2 schools to start. It could be out of your personal garage. It could be 1,000 square feet, because you're not going to have too much stuff. You really only need a couple benches and a couple bikes. But come year 2 and then 3 and moving into 4, you're going to need a good 5,000 square feet. Even though Motogo has 10,000, we're subletting half of it to some woodworkers. So we're only actually 5,000 of the 10, and that at the moment is big enough. It's getting a little cramped, and I think we'll probably have to take over the rest of it in another couple of years. But for the first couple of years, someone starting out a new branch of Motogo would only need 1,000 or 2,000 square feet, and that would be absolutely plenty.
Wow, that's awesome to know, man. That's awesome to know. All right, so if people want to support Motogo, what can they do?
Yes, we love your support. So I'll put on my fundraiser hat, but First of all, just follow us, follow our story. I mean, I think, Carl, that's how you found us, was we had an Instagram reel of 4 kids pulling an engine out of a bike, went viral. We've had like 500,000 views now or something crazy. But so follow us on Facebook, Instagram, MotogoCleveland.com. That's MOTOGO Cleveland.com. We actually have a summer campaign going on right now where we're raising funds for supplies, swag, and snacks, we call it. So anytime you give money, it's helping the students, right? Like, you come in, you take a class. It's really hard to learn how to clean a carburetor if you haven't had breakfast. So some of those basic needs are just important so that everyone's starting at the same baseline, right? Like, you're a wealthy kid coming from the suburbs and you've had your giant stack of pancakes in the morning. A student in the city might not have come in with the same experience. So we start on ground one. But actually, starting today, we're going to be, thanks to Carl, raffling this motorcycle. So BMW here, and you can learn more about it on our website. When you go to MotogoCleveland.com, the BMW pops up, and for a $40 raffle ticket, you could win this motorcycle. But also, all those proceeds are supporting our programming, it's expensive. You know, we're not buying paintbrushes and arts and crafts and paper. We're buying motorcycle engines and defeater and parts and replacement parts and training the right folks to be able to teach this. So everything that you do is really not just bringing back shop class, but it's giving kids a chance to be future leaders in Cleveland and hopefully your city soon too.
Right on. Yeah, we will put the word out on that as soon as we can. But as a background, that's a 2001 Montana blue BMW R1200C. A little bit of a story. There was a very nice gentleman in the area who was moving, and he was quitting riding, and so he needed it moved out, and it had, you know, like, it needed some love. So I spent a little bit of time putting some elbow grease on that myself. And then I heard about their program, and they said that they needed a bike, or that they could use a bike for an auction. And so they drove down, and then they picked it up, and it looks beautiful, guys. You guys have done an awesome job on it. And when I gave it to you, it wasn't starting. Is it starting now?
Oh yeah. Shall I?
Oh, please. Oh my gosh.
So while he's starting it up, one of our coaches, Steve, helps prep our materials, and he and a few of the kids have been working on this together, which was really cool, and not typical, but.
Oh my gosh. This is the James Bond bike.
She goes.
Is it on? I can't hear it.
Oh yeah, I probably
heard it.
You hear it now? He's revving it up. I promise it's running.
Yeah, no, it's cool. I think there's a squelch or something on the audio. So you know what? It's probably noise cancellation. I think that's what it is. But yes, so when you talk, I can hear it in the background.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, awesome, guys. Well, that is super cool. I'm super glad that it turned out. You guys cleaned it up so nicely. That's fantastic. We will get the word out on that 100% for sure. So, you know, so you've got an auction coming up, and then we also have a program. So we have partnered up with the program to also be able to donate money and win some prizes. We'll talk about that at the end of the show. So ultimately, though, like, I know you've talked about expanding and doing all kinds of things in the more immediate future. You know, what's next for you guys, like over the summer and into the fall?
Let's talk about our summer programming now.
Yeah, I'd say it's the same. In the summer, since we don't have any schools to go to, we do a lot of we bring a lot of kids in. So one of the things that we've done this summer and that we do every summer is we bring in kids from the county juvenile corrections system, and their community service hours, rather than cleaning up the sides of the freeway, they're coming in to Motogo and they're helping us prep all the materials to bring it to schools in the fall. So we tell them they're helping us to prep these engines and prep these bikes, but really we're running the class with them, and these kids are learning how to use tools, and they're going through the exact same class that the kids at the schools do. but we're billing it as helping a nonprofit get their materials ready for fall. And then we've got a bunch of interns through a local nonprofit called Youth Opportunities Unlimited, and they pay the kids to come in and work for nonprofits around the city. So we have a bunch of kids upstairs that are doing the same thing. They're helping us clean things and organize things, but at the same time, they're going through our programs and they're learning how to rebuild engines. And they just rebuilt transmissions on 6 bikes, which is something we don't always do. It's pretty
Yeah.
And then in the fall, we've already got 12 schools lined up, 13, I think. So we're going to hit the ground running come September 1st. And hopefully by the spring, we've got another couple schools on board. And then the county program will continue to run on Saturdays once school starts. So we'll get kids in here every Saturday morning from like 9 till noon. And yeah, it's a nonstop, just more of the same, like immediate, just go, hit as many kids as we can, get them as involved as we possibly can.
We don't actually hit kids. You did say hit as many kids as you can. You meant serve. As the executive director, I want to be sure you don't think Motogo.
Serve as many kids as we can.
Be very careful with our words.
Of course. Well, that's awesome, guys. Thanks very much for joining us on ADVMoto Pod. I know you guys have a lot going on. I know you guys just acquired some new help, and that takes time to onboard. I would like to come up and visit you guys in Cleveland. We have some friends up there too, as well. Maybe we'll take a road trip up sometime and see your shop. Maybe we could just do a little bit of fun video and stuff like that.
Cool.
But sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, we would love that. Bring your whole family.
Awesome. That'd be cool. I got some kids that are handy too as well. But thanks again for doing all the work that's needed to empower and inspire today's youth to build confidence in working with their hands. And I have zero doubt that will prepare many kids for the years ahead. All right, thanks, guys. Now to close.
Thank you.
Now to close the show. All right. Well, to all listeners, please find out more about the programming by visiting MotogoCleveland.com. That's the URL there on the screen if you're watching. There's multiple ways to support their mission, from donations to auctions. And also, ADVMoto is co-sponsoring the Beamer Bonanza sweepstakes, which will also give you a chance to win over $100,000 in prizes this December. And we will stick all of the links in the description area wherever you're kind of seeing or hearing this. But in closing, I'd like to emphasize how important it is, not just for the kids, but for the motorcycle industry as well, to pay time and attention to the future generations of riders. And in the spirit of adventure, there's much that the community can teach kids, which will help them succeed in the future, as their future is our future as well. And as Winston Churchill said, teach your kids that success is not final and failure is not fatal. It's the courage to continue that counts. So thanks again to all the listeners who are tuning in to this episode of ADVMoto Pod. Please remember to like, subscribe, all that algorithm stuff. But until next time, from everyone here at ADVMoto, ride safe and have fun.